Welcome to this session on ways of working, where we'll talk about driving enterprise change and delivering a skills transformation at pace. My name is Kate Llewellyn, and I lead R&D Data Academy. Today I'll talk through our culture in R&D with a focus on capability build around smart decision making, and then hand over to my colleague Paul to talk about skills transformation at the enterprise level. Our ambition in R&D is to become one of the world's most innovative companies, and our approach is defined as science times technology times culture. GSK has embedded a clear set of values and expectations, and to bring them to life and make them meaningful for R&D, our culture ambitions are focused on 5 areas: follow the science, smart risk-taking, single-point accountable decision-making, focus, and outstanding people. Today, I'll be sharing some of the detail behind how R&D Data Academy is delivering capability build to address on one of those culture pillars, smart decision-making. What does smart decision-making mean for R&D? If we aren't able to shift how we make decisions, can we continue down the path of high failure rates and late, costly failure? Part of our project role is to help teams understand what smart risk-taking means for them and provide learning opportunities to help teams drive the culture shift. Some examples include thinking and visualizing probabilities and uncertainty and using them to make decisions, particularly those harder, less obvious decisions. Using statistics for quantitative decision making, using the totality of data to drive decisions, not a leading interpretation, and knowing what red flags to look for in data, visualization, and decisions. This change in culture means an uplift in data and analytics skills across R&D. We won't suddenly get there in a big bang. We have to be agile and deliver focused upskilling. In R&D, we have a variety of personas, all using data to drive decisions as part of their daily tasks. We have data explorers with little or maybe some data experience, our data analysts with significant functional data experience, and our data scientists who have deep technical data experience, including coding. A few years back, we estimated that 70% of R&D sit in this data explorer persona, and so we have to have options to support this diversity in skills. You can think of this as a representation of the diffusion of innovation curve. We're effectively crossing the chasm. We need to have our mainstream, our data analysts and data explorers upskilled, and we know there's significant value to unlock in providing upskilling for the masses. More of our data analysts will be able to self-serve around data to drive decisions and reduce the burden on our computational experts, including that time delay, the impact on cycle time and waiting for time with our computational experts. We're not looking to make every scientist a data scientist, but to shift that dial on data skills in the mainstream and create career paths around data skills for scientists that have not existed before. R&D isn't just diverse in terms of skill sets, it's also vast, with a number of divisions focused on different parts of the pipeline. This affects some of our ways of working, especially if we want to be agile in how we deliver. So we start on the left here, getting to MVP quickly. We identified a business unit working with the R&D Data Academy project team with a business need for data upskilling, significant sponsorship and a growth mindset. We set up an Agile squad with the right people to deliver quickly, the right skill set, and learning as we go in that first iteration to apply to our next set of courses. Our number one learning from MVP was that content is absolutely king, and we need to have our content SMEs involved in the development of our courses right from the outset and get buy-in from the very start from their business units. For this reason, we started then looking at MST, Medicinal Science and Technology, one of the key divisions in R&D with a lot of quantitative teams in the group. Really, you can think of MST as the engine of the R&D pipeline. We set up a small group, a small faculty within MST, and those faculty themselves have got single point accountable decision making for data skills within their business unit. We started small with a really tight focus on that initial 4. Groups with a reason to believe, people who'd rang me up and said, I want to be part of this. Other experts who'd come to me and said, I have this set of risks. We believe that data upskilling is going to help us mitigate those risks. Really using those people to stand up a process, refine on the fly based on feedback, and get to a point where we have a backlog, a sprint cycle of course development, and we're delivering for that initial tight focus. We had 10% of R&D as that initial tight focus. Really thinking about what we deliver has to be for that 10%. If it doesn't help, we don't do it. We really clear the path for the project to deliver. Once we've started to show value for those first 4 business units through stories, the metrics on engagement, the value that we're adding to projects, we start to expand to the rest of our scientific business units in MST. We stabilized our agile processes around content development, for example, starting to document that kind of minimal viable compliance, document how we do it so that we can start to think about scaling out beyond just MST. And of course, we're never done improving. It's all very well talking about content. I'm going to talk about content a bit more on the next slide. We also started to establish a change management plan. So how do we ensure we get that embed and grow around data skills within the MST organisation? And at the same time, starting to think about our next big iteration with another division in R&D, research and oncology. Do it again, start small with a pilot in those groups. Tailor the value for research and oncology before we go in with the bigger resource ask, and again for the development organisation in a future iteration. Another great example of agility applied within the project is around content development. I mentioned early on, content is king. We felt that content has a really nice natural fit to an agile sprint cycle, where our faculty request courses, that kind of how we do it within R&D. We put together our backlog, which is pruned on a monthly basis, and we go into a 4-week sprint cycle of content creation. We track effort throughout and have those stand-ups with the subject matter experts across R&D who own that content through that sprint cycle. So we're able to say to the business units we're working with, this is the resource that we require from you, this is what it's going to cost and the time that we need from your people. Once we go into launch, we get feedback and metrics on those courses, and we feed that back into our course updates as well. So we're constantly refreshing the content that we have available so it's not going stale. People come back and engage in the community around data skills. And this is some of our really nice course product. So supporting formal learning. We use one of our internal platforms, a few screenshots here of some of the data skills courses that we've made available, supporting quantitative skills and those data-driven decisions. And really, we've looked to harness the knowledge of the experts here. So we're looking to curate wherever possible, not create content, especially if it already exists. And as I say, harnessing the knowledge of those experts. What have our data scientists and statisticians used to help them learn? Bringing all that knowledge and insight together and hosting it, making it available for our teams as well. And of course, ensuring we leverage our agile process to continually iterate and enhance our content. Before I hand over to Paul, I just want to return to the theme of culture change around smart risk taking. There really is no big bang and we're suddenly making smarter decisions based on data. There has to be a ground-up, grassroots culture change within R&D, from our line leaders supporting data and analytics skills development, our data scientists and scientists generating and collecting data in our labs at the highest possible quality, and our users having the confidence to discuss and share data, as well as self-serve, access and visualize that data to drive those smarter decisions. I'm going to hand over to Paul now to talk about skills transformation at the enterprise level. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Paul Sarjeant. I'm leading the data and analytics skills transformation at an enterprise level across GSK. And so today I want to talk you through the learnings that we've seen so far in trying to drive this change across an enterprise that's got roots back over 300 years. So really understanding and learning from the great work that the R&D team have done and trying to see how we can change that mindset of the whole company and some of the challenges that we've faced along the way over the last few months, especially with such a small team that we've got and the limited budget that we're working towards. There's been some really interesting learnings and how we've been able to apply different ways of working using agile methodologies to really try and make this a success. So we're really going to need global collaboration across the board for this transformation. But ultimately, it's a great opportunity for us to deliver value to GSK. It's been a fun journey so far, and we want to continue that into next year. So the first thing we looked at was how our vision needed to be. So the most important thing was having an end goal in mind. So we looked about 18 months into the future to say, what do we want to have achieved in 18 months' time? And really just given us that North Star to be able to work towards and be able to track measures against as well. So what ultimately is the value we're trying to drive, and how many people do we expect to come with us on this journey for upskilling across the whole of GSK? So that's where we came up with the vision of the GSK Data Academy. So we're really looking at attacking multiple angles and multiple personas through the academy. So firstly, just that base awareness of data literacy across the whole company. So we've got quite an aggressive target of 50,000 people there. And then as we work up the pyramid in our vision, we're really looking at how we can target some real key people across GSK, either champions or professionals in what they do in data and analytics. And by being able to work with a smaller cohort of people, how we can instill that change and those ways of working across the whole company. So that was really how we were going to attack the problem. And then working with Kate and her team, that's where we looked at what the R&D Data Academy had already done. So adopting the same ways of working, the same challenges, the same risks that the R&D team had spent the last year building up, we were able to start our vision not from scratch, but actually just turning what was already there and just turning it into an enterprise mindset behind that. So we took the R&D Data Academy as the first of the building blocks for the overall GSK Data Academy. And then we looked at some of the challenges that we had faced when we'd spoken to different people across the enterprise to see maybe where some of the gaps were when we were really thinking about this as a company-wide problem that we were trying to solve. And so how we can change the mindset and the ways of working of the whole of the enterprise to really think more about those smarter data-driven decisions as a whole company's problem, and really thinking about the cultural elements of that as well. So how can we just start embedding it with the different resources that we have available to us to make sure that this is going to work when we scale it up to the full enterprise? So for those that have seen Simon Owen's presentation from GSK already today, you'll see that within GSK, we really believe in the importance of having a community in front of you. So when we were thinking about the resourcing model for the GSK Data Academy at an enterprise level, we really wanted to make sure we were building on that community feel and making sure we were getting the value from that community. So firstly, we set up a core squad. So we made sure that we had all of the elements of a typical Agile squad, so a Scrum Master and a product manager. But then we wanted to make sure we had the right subject matter experts that were going to be with us full time to really help us deliver the change in the right way. So engaging with our learning and development partners to make sure that we were delivering the right content at the right time. And with our change managers, making sure we had a structure in place to really make sure it was going to land across the whole enterprise. So that was really good to get the core squad in place. But for us, the learnings here is really around having those non-squad roles really excited and engaged with the process right from the beginning. So it took us a few weeks to build up our core squad, but very quickly we realized we weren't going to be able to do this on our own. So that's where we started identifying some non-squad roles like key sponsors in every business unit, or as Kate's mentioned in R&D, they had a series of curators. We wanted to replicate that across the whole enterprise to make sure that as a whole, we were working more than just the core parts of 6 or 7 people in a squad, but actually building up this community where everyone's got a common goal as part of the overall resourcing for the enterprise-wide academy. And a real key one for us going forward is going to be the data and analytics change managers and change agents. They're the ones that are going to be embedded in business units and can really start changing those ways of working within their different departments, because we know that every department in GSK is not going to have the same challenges or the same ways of working. So we want to make sure that we're really working with each business unit to affect the change that we want to make for the whole enterprise. And then obviously not forgetting the end users behind it all as well. So they're really the key for us, making sure that everything we're doing has the end user target in mind, and making sure we're constantly delivering the value that we expect to deliver to those end users. So those are the real key to our resourcing model as well. So I just wanted to talk you through a quick example of how we've taken that product mindset and actually broken it down into a series of smaller products as we understand what the problem was going to be to deliver this change. So for us, the biggest change that we wanted to make was to give everyone a sense of data literacy across the organization. So for GSK to become data literate, we believed that there was something, a course or program that we could deliver to really support that change across the whole enterprise. So first thing we did was go through our dabble process. So it started off with the discovery phase, where we were really focusing on the value that we were trying to deliver through this program. So before getting into the actual how are we going to deliver it, we just spent the first 6 weeks actually just engaging with the community. So 20 users, potential users across GSK, to really understand where the pain points were, how we could track the value of actually delivering that change, and then also how we were going to measure it. So once we'd completed the discovery phase, we then moved into the alpha phase. And for this, it took us quite a lot of courage behind the alpha phase to actually just start delivering content. And again, as Kate's mentioned, content for the R&D team was really king for them. So we wanted to make sure that we could start delivering that content really rapidly and really early, and just start getting a lot of feedback from that user community. So what is it that's actually helping them affect that change in their areas? How can we build on that? What are the different things that we need to focus on as we move through these different phases? And actually not worry too much that it is just a minimal viable product that we want to get out there. And that was a really good learning for us, is having that courage and accountability to just deliver something, knowing it's not the best it could be, but really just using that to help us shape the future of the program. Then moving into the beta phase is what we're just moving into now. And what we started realizing is, as you scale up the number of users, you need to generate a level of excitement behind what you're delivering if you want that change to take effect. So we really started noticing that we want to focus on the user experience behind it, and making sure that if we're scaling up to 2,000 users, there's not just a push of the course, but actually there's a lot of pull from the people that actually have heard about it and want to get excited by what we're doing. So we're really making sure that the user experience behind the program is really pushing the boundaries of excitement for GSK and kind of wanting people to pick this up and run with it themselves. And then finally, as we're going to move on to live into next year and do a full launch. Now, full launch for us is definitely going to be an iterative process. So we're probably targeting a good 20,000 users initially, with our upper limit of around 50,000 by the end of the program. And for us, when we move to live, we want to be very clear that we want to always have that focus on the outcomes delivered from the value that we said right at the beginning of the program. So we have that laser focus as we go through it to make sure that we're continually delivering the value of the program that we said from the beginning. That's what we were aiming for from that small subset of users that we had worked with. So there's a couple of examples that I've certainly seen over the last few months trying to tackle this at an enterprise position, and both from what the R&D guys have achieved over the last year, and then how we started to adapt that to an enterprise vision. There were just a few kind of key takeaways that we were quite surprised by, and really want to embed those learnings going forward in similar programs. So right from the beginning, as Kate had mentioned, culture really comes first for us. So that's the key, is making sure that the culture is going to land within your enterprise, either at enterprise level or even at a smaller department. You've got to make sure that the culture fits what you're trying to deliver. And then with everything we're doing, we want to make sure that it's scalable. So making sure you've put the processes in the right way so that they can be expanded on into different areas, and you can reuse a lot of that same content and really build on the foundations of the great work already going on across an enterprise. And a lot of these problems have been solved before, so it's really about understanding them, building on them, and making sure that we're not having to do a lot of rework across what we do. As we've mentioned, engaging the community has been a great moment for us, is to really build up the number of people who are excited by what we do, getting those change agents on board and the end users, and really getting engaged with everyone and not just trying to treat it as our problem as a small team, but it's the enterprise problem that we want to solve together. Continually adopting and adapting. You'll have heard me use both those phrases. We've had to do both. We've had to adopt a lot of new things, but we've also had to adapt to our scenarios. So that was a really good learning from us. And finally, for us, it was really about having the courage to go and attack it and not worry too much about the end goal as you iterate through this process. You're going to make mistakes, things are going to go wrong, but have the courage to do it and push forward. And ultimately, you'll start being able to change those ways of working in that iterative process using that agile mindset. So thanks very much for listening, and we hope you learned some lessons from what we've talked around today.